I'm back. This is part 2 to Danny Rolling, the serial killer. You know, I find it funny because Danny Rolling was in prison for he was serving life sentences for robbery convictions he had received in Tampa, and he was doing life in prison. He was in population at Florida State Prison. They sent him to Florida State Prison because the investigation into the Gainesville slayings he was a prime suspect for. And so they kept him at Florida State Prison for high security reasons because they expected to bring those charges against him, but they didn't have enough evidence, see. But they sent him to Florida State Prison because it was close to Gainesville, and had they to transport him, he'd be right there. And plus, you know, they expected to bring those charges and seek the death penalty in Florida State Prison's home to Old Sparky and Lady Midnight, now for lethal injections. That's why he was at Florida State Prison. And that's when I met him on the yard at the squat rack doing legs with his daddy, Q. Q was his daddy because Danny Rolling was a fuck boy. Yeah, he was a punk, what we call in the prison, Florida prison, state prison system, punks. Pressure punks. You put a little pressure on them and they fuck. It's just that simple. And that's what Danny Rolling was. He was a pressure punk. And he was Q's boy. Q was, you know, ramming it in his ass, because that's what Danny was. Danny was a pressure punk. You know, out in the street though, stone cold killer when it came to the women, the college girls and stuff like that. And we're gonna get to that. But Danny Rolling, before he came to Florida, living in the woods in the Ocala area, you know, burglarizing people's properties and that sort of thing. He was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and he had a big fight with his father, James Rolling, the sheriff in Shreveport. And he actually took off his father's ear and his eye. Took out an eye and took off an ear. Yeah. That was a big fight. You know, it's like attempted murder, right? He should have got charged with attempted murder and been held, but he was on the run. So he took off and he came to Florida, and he was hiding in the woods in Ocala, doing his little things, his little burglaries and stuff like that. And he was watching this apartment complex in Gainesville, where a lot of students lived from the University of Gainesville. And he was watching them and paying close attention to their vehicles, their homes, their habits, their time schedules. So he knew when they were coming and going, and he was living off of that. He was living off of, you know, whatever he could get out of the vehicles and out of the homes, because that's what he did. Now, this same guy had robbery convictions in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and he committed robberies in Tampa, Florida, and that's what eventually got him caught. Wasn't some good police work. It's never police work. NCICS and all that forensic files, it's all bullshit. You know, that comes after the fact. Then they start piecing pieces together or making them fit, because they do a lot of that too. And that's a fact. That's a fact, and I stand on that. So, Danny, he's committing all these crimes, you know, and he's on the run. You know he is, from Shreveport, Louisiana. But then he goes to Tampa and he does these robberies. Pack and Save or something, a supermarket where he robs the cashiers and takes off and has a big shootout with the cops. And he's shooting at the cops, and so he gets arrested. They finally arrest him. They catch him during that robbery, and they arrest him and they charge him for those robberies. He actually took it to trial. You know, he took it to trial and lost. And that's when he got life sentences and came to Florida State Prison. And that's when I seen him on the yard with Q at the squat rack. And I'll tell you more about that in part 3, Danny Rolling, serial killer.